4, 3.
Delve into why.
No. Cheers.
Indeed.
Yeah, they're bad. They're bad.
Right. Mom didn't even know she was going to have twins.
All 5 of us are amazing human beings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, it's a random time to apply to go to college.
He's going to get emotional. It's okay.
It's like, hi.
Is he still alive? Like,
Yeah, well, that's true. It's true.
and Patrick and I both won an Oscar.
Thank you.
We did.
Thank you. It's like, what in the world?
You know what I'm talking about. You're very Texas proud.
That was more than half my life ago. It's going to be amazing. What?
Like his dream job is to be, he's the oldest. He'll be 50 next year.
That's
50.
great.
Oh my gosh, Mom's got some stories. No, Satan, not today.
No. I'm getting so embarrassed.
So you can... Trust me, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Good
Ready?
times.
And here we go. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the Dorsett Doorstep. If you're new here, my name is Erica, and this is my infamous brother Patrick.
Woo-woo.
If you don't know, Patrick is my brother. He's in a lot of my videos, and people like him. I mean, people like Patrick, and a lot of people comment, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to sit down and do like a Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like tell you some really great things about Patrick, because nobody really knows his story. Nobody knows like about him other than he's always at my house and he likes to eat.
And I do, and I like to eat her food.
And he's always happy, and he wears funny t-shirts, but like, let's find out more about Patrick.
Delve into why.
So Patrick agreed to do this Q&A. So we're gonna, first of all, we will be telling like his story, his life story, just briefly. Not, he is 49, just turned 49. That was actually one of the questions. Yep, April 28th.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of story, but we won't obviously tell all of it, but we'll tell a lot of it. And that actually will answer some of your questions and some of the things you're wondering about. If you know his story, you'll understand. So I will be putting pictures in as we go, like different ones of him growing up, our family, different situations, things like that, so that, so be looking for those throughout. So this video might be a little long. I'm going to try and keep it under 45. Hopefully it's not 45, because that's crazy. I'd probably need to do 2 separate videos. But, so grab a drink.
Yes.
Get comfy.
I've already got my own.
We got our water.
That's right.
Cheers. Cheers.
Indeed.
So get comfy. Get your comfy clothes on. Get in a comfy chair. Get ready to listen. Because Patrick, he likes to talk.
That's true.
I kind of like to talk too.
Yeah, I know. As I've noticed when I watch your videos, I'm like, Erica wasn't this outgoing when she was growing up.
If you go back and watch my older videos, I was a little less
flamboyant.
Yeah, they're bad. They're bad.
Right.
Anyways, let's get started. So we're going to first start with some stories about Patrick.
Yeah.
So I'll be putting pictures in as we go. But our mom and dad, Patrick Andrews Sr., Patrick is a junior, in case you did not know that.
It's true.
And our mom, Nancy, got married in 1971. And in Houston, Texas. They had, they were not Christians at the time. And then along came Patrick. My mom was only 19 when she had him. And my dad was 20, I think. And
21, probably 20.
Yeah, they were young, very young.
Very.
They got married right after my mom graduated high school.
9 days after.
To be exact.
Yeah.
They had Patrick the next year in 1972. And then in 1973, they were involved in a really bad car wreck, and it totaled the car, and Patrick was in the car with them, and he was wearing he wasn't in a child seat, because that wasn't the law back then.
This was in 72. 73, right. And seatbelts were not required for the front seat. I mean, for
children.
For children. That's what I meant.
But you'll see later on how seatbelt saved his life.
Saved my life 100%.
So he's very pro seatbelt.
Very, very much. Very,
he wouldn't
very
be here
much.
if it wasn't for it. So to make a long story short, the people that helped them at the wreck were Christians. They invited them to go to church. My mom and dad went to church. They got saved. They met Jesus. They decided they were going to. Everything changed for them. They did. My dad started. He got radically saved. He was very worldly before, and then started living for the Lord. He was a police officer, and he would go to work and witness all the time. And anyway, got in trouble for witnessing so much. But then Patrick was supposedly okay after the wreck, even though he did hit the windshield. They thought he was okay, or he hit the dashboard, I think. My mom could tell you exactly.
Mom says that I hit my head on the
dash,
on the windshield, the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they thought he was okay. My mom was young. They thought he was okay, and I don't know specific details, but it wasn't long after that. They were visiting in Houston. We're from Austin, but they were visiting in Houston, where my dad's family's from, and basically Patrick started he started to get really bad, really serious. They had to rush him to the emergency room, and he did have a head injury. His brain was swelling, and it was pretty serious. And long story short, he survived, but he did have a brain injury when he was 2 years old.
Yeah,
1 or 2 years old.
2 years old, right.
So that was number one. And then he was born in 72, I was born in 74. 1 year later, our twin sisters were born in 75. And then 2 years later...
Let me just say real quickly, Mom didn't even know she was going to have twins until she was on the hospital delivery
table.
Literally.
She thought she was having one big boy, and it was 2 little girls, and they were 6 weeks early. So she had them when I was only 13 months old. She had twins. So then 2 years after them, she had our brother Joe. So Patrick's the oldest, Joe's the youngest.
3 girls
boys on the ends, 3 girls in the middle. Yep. So 5 kids in 5 years. Crazy.
Literally amazing.
And then jumping forward, when my youngest brother Joe was 1, my dad left my mom. And
I was 6.
Patrick was 6. Joe was 1. My mom was 24 and had 5 kids to raise.
Seriously, she was 24 years old. Holy cow, the older I get.
Actually, she was 24 when she had Joe, I think, so maybe 25. Okay. I don't know, 24, 25. You know, no college education. Her husband just left when she had 5 kids. So basically,
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And so when I was 4, my dad left. Patrick was 6. And then when I was 10, 18, 19, 20, 22, 4 days before my 11th birthday, our dad was killed.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Because your birthday is the 22nd.
My 11th birthday.
11th birthday. Oh, see, I never knew that.
Yeah. So we hadn't seen him, but maybe twice in between when he left to when he. I mean that we remember. I remember twice. From when he left to when he died. So then my mom raised 5 kids on her own. Yeah. So thus began a really hard job.
Very.
My mom is a saint, and no, she's not perfect. She made a lot of mistakes, as have I, as a parent. But my mom's amazing. We love my mom so much. We're so grateful that she taught us, raised us in a Christian home, taught us to love the Lord. Oh, we may not have had money or anything. Sometimes we were homeless, but we always knew she loved us, and she taught us, she raised us in a Christian home with Christian values. It was very important. So, and she did an amazing job. All 5 of us are amazing human beings today. We give Mom the credit. But
yeah, it's very true.
So, unfortunately, Dad, he missed out on a lot of stuff. He missed out on 5 great kids and a bunch of grandkids and great-grandkids.
Holy cow, yeah.
It's a sad story. He was only 33 when he died.
34.
34 when he died.
Right?
Oh, 34. Oh, yeah, he had just turned. Wow. So then fast forward to 1993, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick decided
to go to Liberty University.
Yeah, he decided he was going to leave Austin,
basically,
Texas, and go to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia.
I moved from the security of Central Texas to the unknown of Central Virginia.
Patrick's friend, he was a very good friend from high school, and his roommate, and
co-worker.
They got an apartment together, and they decided together they were moving up here. So he had his aunt and uncle that lived up here.
Yes.
And so Patrick told us, I guess it was the end of the year, 93. He was going to come up here for college starting in January of 94.
I applied to come to Liberty in October of 93. It's like, it's a random time to apply to go to college.
But he did.
I did. It's true.
So I remember we all, went out to dinner with Grandma and Grandpa and all of us. Yeah. We had like our last big hurrah before Patrick was moving on to Virginia. It was kind of crazy. So he moved up here in January of 94. Drove up here with his best friend. Started going to Liberty in January, and then in March of 1994, March 23rd actually. March 24th. Yeah, but March 23rd.
Oh, yes.
Patrick called us.
Oh my gosh.
We were at home, and he called us, and for some reason we were all there, and he talked to us was the first time we'd all really talked to him, and he's he's gonna get emotional. It's an emotional thing. It's okay. So he talked to all of us that night. I remember we all got to talk to him, and he was so happy. He was so happy. He was loving school. He had met this girl. They'd gone out on a date, and they had another date scheduled. He was loving classes. He was loving his friends because he's a people person, in case you didn't know this. And he was just so happy.
Yes.
And then the next day, March 24th, 1994, we were... You could tell your part. Well, for us, we were at home. I remember it was a long day. I remember that day my car broke down. My grandparents had to pick me up, and it was like 9:30 at night. And Angela, our sister Angela, was on the phone, and there was a call cutting through, and we didn't know who it was, so she answered it, and they said it was the hospital up in Lynchburg, Virginia, and they needed to speak to our mom, and our mom was not home at the time, and so we were like, well, she's not home. What's going on? And they said, well, we need to talk to her. But they did tell us that Patrick was in the hospital, and he was in a car accident, and he was in critical condition, and that was all that they told us. So we had to get in touch with my mom. My mom came home. She called the hospital, and they gave her some more details, but Patrick can tell you that night what actually happened. I don't think he has a lot of memory of that night.
I don't have any memory of that night that the wreck happened to me. I do remember if you reverse just a little bit, the March the 24th is right after spring break of '94. I remember I had gone to Daytona Beach, Florida. It's like, I'd never been to Florida before. And so from Virginia, we drove down to Florida. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's where his memory ends. You don't remember driving that night. You don't remember anything.
Not a bit.
Well, so what we were told by the other people, was that he was in the car with his best friend and roommate that he'd come up here. It was his car. He was driving. Patrick was in the back seat, and then they had another friend in the front seat, passenger side. There's a mountainous road right by the school, and they were on that road in a Mustang, young boys, probably going too fast. Probably had the music loud.
Yeah.
Knowing them, they liked fast cars, those kinds of things. No alcohol was involved. No alcohol, no drugs. But they were going to try and get to campus by curfew. So chances are they were probably going a little too fast.
Probably. But I wasn't driving.
Right. He wasn't driving. But what the investigation concluded was that the axle of the car actually broke in half, and then it caused caused the car to flip over, and there was a huge gouge in the road, and the car flipped over, and when it landed on the side where Patrick was actually sitting. Yeah, so his head took the brunt of the impact. And so basically the first responders all thought he was a goner. They said he was posturing. If you know anything about a head injury, he was posturing. He had all the signs of a massive head trauma.
Do tell me what posturing means.
It's when you like kind of your muscles contract and like you pull, like you're pulling everything in.
Yes, yeah.
And he was just, he was alive, but he was barely alive, and they rushed him to the emergency room, and everyone in the hospital, first responders, everyone thought there was no way he was going to survive this. And if you do survive a head injury, what are you going to be like afterwards? So basically, my mom's single mom. We did not have any money. We didn't have a nice car to hop in the car and come up here, but our grandparents lent us their car. We all came up here, literally left at midnight that night and drove up here because my mom had tried to get a flight out, but the next flights didn't go out till like 7 the next morning, and she was like, I can't just like sit here all night long, not even knowing if my child is alive or not. And so of course driving took longer, but in her mind she had to do something right then. So I think it was 3 hours. We threw stuff in bags and we left, and we drove to Virginia. I was in college. I was had a job, and I just quit everything, and we just came up here, and it was a long, very long process. But so basically Patrick was in a medically induced coma. He had massive head injury. I'll use the term TBI a lot because it stands for traumatic brain injury, and Patrick had a massive head injury and very little chance of survival. And that first week was very scary, like very touch and go. The whole drive up here, they told us to stop and call every couple hours because they didn't even know if he was going to be alive still. So every time we had to pull off the highway and call, it was always like, is he still alive? Like, just tell us if he's still alive. And he was still alive every time we called. And then we got up here, and, you know, getting to see him just swollen and black and blue, and it was horrible. And it's okay.
Talk to my mom.
You can talk when you're...
Yeah. My mom said that, my mom told me that when my family got to the hospital room and they looked in the hospital room, it was a small hospital room back in '94, that she literally got to the bed but couldn't recognize there was me in the bed because my head was swollen.
And he had a brain monitor coming out of his head. His head was shaved and a monitor, and you can imagine all the things coming out. Basically, Patrick, his head, and then the landing, it broke the window, and his seatbelt held him in, saved his life, praise the Lord.
100%.
But he did have to have staples in his head. He's got a huge scar in his head when his head is shaved, where you can see he's got a scar. He had to have staples all to hold it together. And he broke facial bones.
I broke, didn't I break like all of the bones that were in my face?
Yeah, you saw x-rays.
Yeah, I saw x-rays of my very face with a whole bunch of broken facial bones.
Yeah, his head, basically all the injury was on his head.
That was very intense. Yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't think that he was going to make it, and that first week was very critical. He was in very critical condition. At the end of that week, I remember they told my mom, it was Saturday night, it was the night before Easter, and they told my mom either he's going to make turn a corner and he's going to start to improve, or else he's not going to make it. This is going to kill him, basically. And Mom was just so distraught. And I remember Liberty University had been so great to us. They gave us meal tickets, they gave us a place to stay, they were amazing. And I was at Liberty that night, and the next morning was Easter Sunday, and I woke up, and before my eyes even opened, I was listening, the radio cut on, and it was Twyla Paris. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a Christian singer, and she has a song called God is in Control. And I just kept hearing that over and over. God is in control. And it was Easter morning, and I woke up, and then I got a call from my mom, and she said that they had adjusted the monitor in his brain that morning, and the numbers, we had always watched those numbers. If you have someone who's got a brain injury, you understand, you watch those numbers like crazy. Critically. Because if they get too high, that is damaging his brain, and there's no going back from that. And so we watched those numbers like a hawk when we were there. And they said that they had just gotten so high the night before, they just said either this is it or he's going to turn a corner. And they adjusted his monitor that morning, and his numbers just like went way down, and they said they think that maybe it was just not in there right, and that those were false readings. And so we just breathed a sigh of relief. And I remember they were like, okay, we feel like he's made it over this hurdle of maybe he's going to survive. But then it was like, what is he going to be like if he survives? What is going to be his future, Mm-hmm. And so basically he was there were you in intensive care for 1 month? I was, yes. He was in a neurological intensive care, and then he was transferred to another room. I think it was 6 weeks. Well, for the last 2 weeks, you were just in a regular hospital room. That would explain it, right. And we were trying to set things up for rehab, but we weren't even from here, so my poor mom, we didn't have insurance, money, we didn't have anywhere to stay. It was very stressful, but there was a Nova Care rehabilitation hospital in Richmond, which is 2 hours from here, and we managed to get him into that. So we went up there, and there was a house there. Long story, but there's a house there that they rent to families whose loved ones are at the place, and it's $10 per night for a room. But they literally gave us the whole house for $10 a night. God just like totally orchestrated it. I mean, it was very scary because at times we didn't know where we were going to live. We didn't have money for food, but somehow money would just come in like right at the last minute. One time we found $100 in our car that was like my sister's Christmas gift that she had lost before, and we found it months later. And anyways, we we stayed, Jackson's room is above here, so you'll hear him. Anyway, we stayed there. Patrick was in rehab for 12 weeks and basically had to learn how to do everything again. He had to learn how to walk, how to talk, how to feed himself, everything. Right. And he was seriously confused. I'll put in some pictures of, like at this point he had really come from really the grip of death. Like he should have died. He should have died. And he overcame like this massive, huge hurdle, and he survived. That was number one. But then having to like learn everything again, he had to learn how to do everything. He basically went into the rehab. I remember them wheeling him in on a stretcher, and he was like an infant. I remember him like pulling at his sheets and just like like he was like an infant. And when he left the rehab 12 weeks later, he basically had the mentality of an 8-year-old.
And I could walk.
Yeah, you could walk with a limp, and his right arm.
My right arm
has problems. You may sometimes notice he doesn't use his right arm.
I sort of protect my right arm, kind of. I don't even think about it, but it's like I do. If my right arm is hanging down or whatever, I do like instinctively pull it up so that it's.
And he had a brace. He had a brace that would make him angry. He'd get so angry. That brace. But he had to learn. I remember we'd sit in with his therapy sessions and we'd hear them tell him like he would do occupational therapy, and they would just teach him simple tasks that we take for granted, but he had to learn the simplest tasks. And one of the very first things that came back to him before he could really speak, before he could remember anything, was his sign language.
Oh, yes.
And that was what someone asked about. You can tell them about why you learned sign language and what you did with sign language before your wreck.
Yes. Before I had the car accident, I didn't have the car wreck. I was in the car wreck. I learned, I volunteered at a youth group, a camp for disabled children. And
when you were a teenager?
When I was a teenager back in Austin. And some of those kids, their handicap was that they were deaf. And I became friends with somebody.
Everyone you met.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's true. And then one of my friends that I met was a deaf person, but I think it was a girl who taught me the alphabet in sign language. And then I just gradually learned a little bit more. And then I don't remember this time when I learned sign, I love you in sign language. I don't remember any of that.
But you would sign at church. You would.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, he was like really good. Knew a lot of sign language.
Right.
And he did when he was a teenager. He worked at a camp called Camp I Can, and it was kids with like schizophrenia. I mean, there was a lot of mentally challenged kids, and it's ironic because Patrick ended up being, mentally disabled later on in life. But he was my dog, sorry. He volunteered there for a long time and was actually in a commercial.
That's right.
It was The More You Know or something.
Yeah,
it was for our local.
For Austin.
Patrick and I were both actors when we were for a cable access show. Our whole family was, and our mom actually wrote scripts because she got like $3 a page, so she'd write like a 6-page script and get $18, and it was like any way she could do anything she could do to make money. We didn't get paid, but they did have like a little Oscars, and Patrick and I both won an Oscar.
Thank you.
We did.
Thank you all.
Oh, thank you. So we won this little radio. It was a piece of cheese with a mouse on top, and his mouth would move when the radio would play. And it was just so wonderful. We won for Best Actor, Best Actress.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for your support. We appreciate it.
Indeed. We're not worthy. I mean,
But anyways, that was just a random bunny trail. One of you asked for something you didn't know about Patrick. He was an actor, child actor. He actually had dreams of being an actor.
Oh, I did. I had headshots done at Third Coast Casting in Austin.
Yeah, and believe it or not, when he was younger, he and Kirk Cameron, it was when Kirk Cameron was younger too. Yeah. They very much resembled each other. I'll put some pictures in just when he was younger.
Yeah.
But Patrick was like Mr. Popularity, and I told him he was prom king. He was like, literally everyone knew him. Patrick was always, like a couple of you asked, was he always just happy and outgoing? Was always very outgoing, always very loud. Our whole family is that way. My mom isn't, and I am not as much. And my sister Andrea isn't so much, but Joe, Patrick, and Angela are very outgoing.
Very outgoing.
And when our whole family's together, it's very loud. And that, I think, comes from our dad's side of the family. Our dad was a big joker, always cutting up, always loud. And our mom is more on the reserved side. So bless her heart, raising all these loud kids. But so anyway, Patrick survived. Patrick had to learn how to do everything again. So because of his head injury, it definitely made everything in his life just come to a screeching halt. And he had to his plans for the future, just everything just kind of stopped. And he was going to he was going to go to college, and he wanted to be a pastor. And he was already like preaching in churches.
That's right. I was preaching in the youth groups and in the nursing homes, in the FCA. I did a lot of preaching.
You did, and he was really good. I'm going to tilt this up a little bit so they can see the top of your head.
Oh, okay. Indeed.
So I don't remember. I don't know what your major was.
My major at Liberty was undecided at first.
Okay, at first. Because he was only in his first semester. This is crooked. Hold on.
Not even a semester.
Yeah, not even finished. You didn't even finish.
Right. I started in mid-January, and then to mid-February to mid-March, and then
that was it.
Yeah, a couple of weeks after. Yeah.
So Patrick didn't. So if Patrick has a TBI, so for the rest of his life, he has a brain injury, and it affects him. So it affects his decision-making ability. It affects so many things. It really affects everything he does, and he doesn't have the ability to do simple tasks that, like, you and I might take for granted. They're really difficult for him because he has a TBI. Like, for instance, I've talked about this with him the other day. Yes. Like, we go to this discount theater all the time in our town. We go, he's probably been down that route hundreds of times. And it's not even 10 minutes away, but he still can't do it without following me or using his GPS. Or using my GPS. Which always gets him in the wrong place. He gets so frustrated because he can't do that, even though he's driven it so many times. Yeah. So there's many things in his life that are very difficult that he has to overcome on a daily basis just because he has a TBI. It's something that never goes away. And they said after a year, basically, that's as far as your brain is going to heal. You're not going to get any better after that. But they told us Patrick would never go back to school. He would never live on his own.
Learn how to drive.
And of course, he already knew how to drive, but he had to relearn how to drive. So he took 4 years from 94 to 98. I went from doing therapy in Richmond in the capital of Virginia to doing therapy in Austin, my home, but the capital of Texas too. It's like, what in the world? So he did outpatient therapy there for 4 years. So this was like life changing, and everything stopped. So so when he had his brain injury, he was 21. He had his 22nd birthday while he was in a coma.
Right.
A month after
I don't remember a bit. Yeah. I've seen pictures of me in the wheelchair with happy 22nd Patrick.
I made you a big sign. Yeah, all your friends signed it. Yeah. But you don't remember it. So basically they say when you have a brain injury that you that's kind of where your maturity level kind of ends. So Patrick, in a lot of ways, is like a 21-year-old. He has the same energy as a 21-year-old. He likes to be around young 21-year-olds because he's just, that was when his life sort of stopped. And if you or someone you love has suffered a TBI, you understand. You understand the
very, very true
how life-changing it is.
Completely.
And so Patrick survived, but he does have a lasting effect. So we won't get into all of it because we don't have time. We're probably already gone over. But basically, he should have died. For whatever reason, God spared his life because God is sovereign. And Patrick has written a book about his story that goes way more into detail.
Yes.
For a while, it's been with a friend of his that is a publisher, and she's been sorting through his ramblings and his memory. He doesn't remember. The reason I've been telling a lot of it is because he doesn't remember any of the wreck and the aftermath.
The whole time I was in a coma.
We lived it.
Yeah, they did. That's true.
Anyway, that's another story, but that's how we ended up here. That's why we left Texas. We never would have left Texas. God bless Texas.
God bless Texas.
But here we are in Virginia. Who'd have thunk it?
Exactly.
I'd have never given Virginia another thought, but I do love it up here. And then it wasn't long after I met Marion, and the rest was history. And so now, like, our mom lives here.
Yes.
Our younger brother Joe lives here.
I love it.
And Patrick and I, and then our two sisters. One lives in the Bahamas, and she has a Christian sports camp called Camp Bahamas. Check it out. And then our other sister Angela lives in California. So none of us are in Texas, which is kind of a sad thing. But we do love Texas. And you know, if you're from Texas, you know what I'm talking about. You're very Texas proud.
You're very Texas.
I was 19 when I moved up here, so I'm born and raised in Texas.
Yeah.
Always will love Texas.
I was 21 when I left Texas. That was more than half my life ago.
Yeah. But the thing is, Patrick did have to take 4 years off, and his goal was to go back to school. So when he was in the coma, in those first couple days, Jerry Falwell, who was the founder of Liberty University, he's in heaven now, but he came to the hospital and visited Patrick, and Patrick was, of course, in a coma and didn't know what he said, but he did say in front of us, he said, Patrick, if you can make it out of this, you can make it through this, and you can get back to Liberty, I'm going to give you a full scholarship. So once we told him that, his brain could comprehend that, that's all he thought about.
Yeah.
He was getting back to Liberty.
100% back I don't mean to cry, y'all. Back in Austin. And I wrote about it in the book. In the book, when it comes out, it's going to be amazing. But I wrote about it in the book that when I was doing therapy back in Austin, the only thing that kept me going through therapy, which is totally humiliating, is my family told me that Jerry Falwell said that he would give me a scholarship to come back to Liberty, and I wanted to be back at Liberty with all of my heart. I just became me, basically, at Liberty University.
But imagine how he wanted to come back, and he wanted it to be the way that it was.
Right.
He wanted all his friends to be there, the girl that he liked. But none of that was the same, because they had all graduated and moved on. It was 4 years later, and it wasn't the same. And it was extremely difficult for someone with a traumatic brain injury to go back to college. But he did, and he had to take, what, 2 classes a semester?
Yeah, in essence, I took 2 classes per semester for 18 years, because I started in 94, didn't graduate till 2012.
He did take the 4 years off. But you graduated first from the Bible Institute.
from the Liberty Bible Institute, which is the method by which God brought me back up to Lynchburg to go to Liberty, but he wanted to gradually train my brain from a traumatic brain injury, just in a coma, you know, to suddenly now being able to take classes, Bible classes. And then I took the LBI is a 2-year, 4-semester program. It took me 4 years, 8 semesters.
Hey, he can do it with a TBI. Anybody can do that. Okay? He can do it with a TBI, he can do it too.
Exactly.
But then, so what year did you graduate LBI?
I graduated from LBI in 2002.
So then 10 years later.
A decade later, I graduated from Liberty University with a bachelor's degree in communications.
Communications.
What?
Like his dream job is to be a radio personality.
Right.
Would he be good at that? He'd be so good at that.
Indeed.
So, who knows what God has in store for him, but God does not make mistakes.
That's right.
God allows things like that to happen in our lives. And we don't always know why, and a lot of the things we won't know until we get to heaven.
That's true.
We won't know why he allowed that tragedy to happen, why he allowed Patrick to have to reverse the entire duration of his life. Because Patrick had a calling on his life. He was going to preach the word, and he was going to be this awesome preacher one day, but then all of a sudden everything changed, and Satan wanted to kill him, but God did not allow.
I've got it in my book that I wrote. I said the Bible says that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that night the wreck happened. He tried to steal my life. He tried to kill me directly, and then he tried to destroy my future 100%.
But isn't that just how the devil is? He knew that God had a calling on your life, and he knew you were going to do great things. But what he didn't realize is that even though Patrick had the wreck, he can still do great things through his story. Yes, so he has suffered 2 traumatic brain injuries in his life. And he's still kicking. Look at him over here, just turned 49. Still kicking.
Crazy.
Still telling people about Jesus. Still telling people about the miracle
that he is
sitting right here. He is a miracle. Just the fact that he's alive is a miracle. So that was a long process of recovery.
Very. I did just turn 49.
Yep. He's the oldest. He'll be 50 next year.
That's
50.
Crazy.
And there's 5 of us within 5 years, so we're all in our 40s.
So in the next 5 years,
50s.
we're going to all be
It's crazy.
49.
We had a crazy childhood. Someday we'll have to tape it down. Somebody mentioned that they would love for Mom to sit down and, like, Mom's got some stories. I'm sure we all have stories, right? But, oh my gosh, Mom's got some stories. But all that to say that God saved Patrick's life. God's still using Patrick today. Obviously, so many of you are really drawn to him with his personality and his joy and his zest for life and his love for people. And those things are all real.
Yes.
Like, very real. Patrick was like that before his wreck, but he's very much that way and grateful to be alive. And people ask, like, where does your joy come from? Why are you always so happy?
Take joy. Right. The joy of the Lord is my strength, 100%.
Because he couldn't, well, none of us could be that way without Jesus.
True.
You know, like, so that's the joy, the light that radiates from within you is literally the light of Jesus.
Exactly.
And Patrick is a walking testament to what God can do and how Satan might think that he's taking it all away, but no.
No. This is no in sign language. No.
Got it? No, Satan, not today.
No.
Okay, so I'm sure there's other things we'll tell, but I'm going to get into a few questions because this thing has gone on for a long time. So the two most popular questions were, are you married, and do you have kids, and do you want to be married? And the answer is?